Hi my friends, welcome to my channel. If it's your first time here, I'm Allie Wilkins. I'm a spiritual teacher, an energy healer, a guide, an author, a mentor. I do a lot of different things, but basically what I do with all of my work is bring ancient wisdom into the modern world in a way that you can apply it in your own life to relieve suffering, to become more attuned to your own soul's path. So today we're going to talk about fearing our primal selves, fear of our dark goddess, fear of darkness in general. So as a prerequisite to watching this, I would suggest you go watch my What is Shadow Work video, or if you already know about shadow work, then you're good. But if you don't, that's going to help you understand more of what I talk about here. So I'll put that up in one of these corners. So fearing our dark goddess is something that was really implanted in us thousands of years ago. So I've been on this kick about talking about matriarchal and patriarchal systems because in all the years of work that I've been learning about ancient wisdom and just even my own fears and self-sabotaging habits and stories, when I started learning about the matriarchy and how it ended, I was like, oh, I thought that this was just my own stuff. I thought this was from my parents or from our generational, our ancestral traumas or things that maybe went on during the Great Depression or the last couple hundred years. And when I learned about this, I'm like, wow, so this stuff is actually 5,000 years old. None of this is just our grandparents or our great-grandparents' issue that has been given to us. So I am sharing so much about this because it's so crucial in understanding, number one, I'm not blaming, but it's important for us to understand the truth of something. If you're manipulated and you are never told about it and you don't know, it's going to help you to understand what that manipulation was, how it happened, and what it actually looked like, right? So that's at the core of this. That's at the core. We're taught... We were taught thousands of years ago. I'm just going to be straight up with this, you guys. I'm not good at sugarcoating things, so I'm just going to say it as it is. If it offends you, sorry, but notice why you're getting triggered. So you're welcome for the gift of triggeration. Anyways, so thousands of years ago, the church was the start of the patriarchy. So this was the Catholic Church. It's the same church we have today, but today times have changed so much that what they did back then never would fly in today's day and age. Now it's much more subtle and they're not as blatant about things. Back then, the manipulation was psychological torment, and there hasn't ever been conversations really about that. So I'm here to bring it to you. Anyways, so thousands of years ago, this patriarchal system started to begin and replace the matriarchal system, which really honored the cycles of life, honored and revered everything as the divine. They had deep community. They had deep reverence for how they did everything. It was intertwined with all parts of their life. And then the patriarchy came in, and the church, especially once they had more world's power, once they had taken over all of Europe, so this is around 2000 BC-ish. 1500 BC is really when they became a world's power. They changed our relationship to life itself. That's pretty big, right? Something we probably should have been taught about. So basically, before the patriarchy began, we worshipped the cycles of life and we worshipped the goddess. This was the truth for tens of thousands of years. Some people say hundreds of thousands of years. This is why in caves, when they find, artifacts from Paleolithic times, or they look in caves, they can trace the drawings back to 20,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. It's the goddess on the walls. All of these different cultures worshipped the goddess. And so the goddess was seen as one all-encompassing being, just like individuals were. So what I mean by that is there weren't good parts of the goddess and bad parts of the goddess or the human individual. There weren't oh, this part of you is good, but that part of you is bad. So I'm also going to make a video soon about the origins of duality. There's a little hint. So anyways, no part of the person or God was seen as being bad. It was just like all of these are valuable parts of our cycle. And so of life. So then what happened is the church came in and said, oh, actually these like underworld aspects are actually the devil. This is actually hell. So the goddess flowed easily between the underworlds and the heavenly realms. And I think about this as like an infinity sign, moving through the cycles of life, just like the seasons, right? It's like spring and summer, things are blooming. You're maybe in the heavenly realm. And then in fall and winter, it's like, oh, things are dying. Things are becoming dormant, gathering energy like bears hibernate. And you're in the underworld. But the church then called the underworld aspects of self hell. Before that, there was no hell. The church invented hell. So I'm going to stop there because that's going to be more in that duality video I just talked about. So I'll tag it here, which it might not be ready for a few days. So check back later if you're seeing it and nothing comes up here when I point to one of these sides. So anyway, we went from honoring the underworld parts of life, our shadowy selves, the more primal parts that can be abused or could be exploited. We honored these parts of ourselves and we actually worked with them in ways so that they could be harnessed powerfully and safely. So for example, women would have like, and I don't know if men were included this too, but they would have ceremonies where they were releasing their rage. Wouldn't it be nice if we had that here in our day and age today? I'm sure many of you have seen memes that are like, I think we all just need to go scream in the middle of a field right now. You know, we hold so much of that because rage is seen as like, oh, this isn't something you show people, right? You just hold it and hope that one day it will dissipate. And so back in the day, like thousands of years ago, people would have ceremonies to release rage, to work with their anger in healthy ways. We don't have that today. Why do we not have that? Because a system of power told us these parts of yourself are not okay. You have to hide them. These parts of yourself are evil, and you're actually evil for having these aspects of self. So one of the things I've learned that I had no concept of how bad this was, how do I put this? So basically at the start of this patriarchal system, in order for people to be able to be controlled or to be treated poorly, you have to believe that you deserve it. Otherwise, you would never allow it, right? Maybe that's a message for another area of your life. But we were psychologically programmed colonizing. Basically, the patriarchy went in and colonized all of these different matriarchal cultures, psychologically manipulating them into believing that their ways of life were bad and evil. And over time, bringing them, it's like people who go and try to convince people to worship their God. What are they called? Missionaries. It's done with good intent, but it's like, how do you know that you're actually helping them, right? So that's probably an unpopular opinion, but anyways. So it's just like, Columbus coming into America and then trying to change all of the Native Americans' ways of life and then destroying their way of life. That's literally what happened. And that was the last time that really happened on a grand scale that we are aware of. So this was happening all the time back in these time periods until they had converted everyone to this belief system. So once they did that, they've already ripped people out of their homes, their land, their ways of life for maybe hundreds of thousands of years, right? These belief systems that have been in their whole culture. And then they start to tell them, okay, actually sex is evil. Everything on earth is actually like vile and evil. So anything that, basically every part of the matriarchal culture was flipped inverse. So they honored every part of life as being sacred. The inverse of that is nothing is sacred. Everything on earth is vile. Our God actually can't even live on our planet Earth because it's so horrible. He has to live up in the sky in this like palace in the sky, right? There's other nuances that come with that too, like he's external of you and you can only reach him through a priest who serves as a powerful mechanism of control. God, there's so much information here. I've already said this in a bunch of videos. If you want to learn more, I have a free masterclass that goes really into all of this because I'm trying to make these videos like 20 minutes and chunkable so you can actually watch like little bits if you don't want to watch the whole masterclass. But if you want more, the masterclass has a lot. It's about 2 hours. It also has an Akashic Records activation. I'll put the link in the comments below. So watch it there if you're interested. But anyways, what was I saying? So yeah, the inverse of these cultures was put into effect by the patriarchy. So it's like everything is evil. Women are seen as vile. Women are seen as being basically the spawns of Satan. And it's like women are only good for procreation and then you have to repent afterwards. And women were just treated so horribly, whereas before women were revered. Women were seen as the creators of life. And then all of a sudden, like Adam is birthing a woman from his rib. Okay. So so much has been like, we aren't aware that it's literally the inverse of matriarchal cultures is what the patriarchy is. And that's so damaging to all of us, not just women. So anyways, these darker parts of ourselves are all of a sudden called evil, called satanic, called demonic. Sex is something that you don't talk about. Money is something that you don't talk about. All these different forms of desire are something that isn't spoken about. It's seen as dirty. It's seen as wrong. And so these darker parts of ourselves that have sexual desire, that have these primal parts, it's our primal nature as an animal of life. We have rage, we have sexual urges, we have anger, we have these energies that have been so repressed. And so if something's not openly welcomed in our society, or like I said before, harnessed in a powerful way, it's going to start creating some damage within our bodies, right? So we fear this part of ourselves because we were programmed to. Because these are also the parts of ourselves that would never allow us to be controlled. We live in a slave system today. We live in a big machine where we are all cogs of a system that we're not actually, I just got a funny text message where we're not actually living life. We're not a part of the cycles of life. We don't understand life. Could you go out into the forest and determine like which plants are edible and which plants are not? No, but I bet you can do a lot of stuff on a computer, right? I bet you can do a lot of things that if technology failed would have no purpose and we would all be like flailing in the wilderness because we don't have a connection with life. Sure, you might go on a hike once a week. You might talk to your plants like I do or give your blood back to your plants like I do, but we don't have that deep connection of life. It's been ripped away from us. And we've started to see certain aspects of ourself as being good or bad. And the bad ones, just push that under the rug. Like, don't let anybody see it. So, also something else that is very connected to this, and I mentioned this before, a lot of things had started to become called demonic. There's so much I can go into here. So many things, basically anything that challenged the church would be called demonic. And they really focus this on pagan communities. So I want you to just think about, first of all, what does the word pagan mean to you? I always thought, like, I just would imagine seeing that pentagram symbol, which is actually a sacred symbol, not a devil worshiping symbol. I always thought it was devil worshipers because that's what the church basically tells you. And it's not like you hear it at church. These are very old forms of psychological manipulation that have lived through generation after generation. And basically what happened is we would, how in movies they have, like in old fashioned movies, they have like a hanging station, I don't know what they're called, or like a whipping station or a pyre at the center of the town. This was based on reality for thousands of years, this is how they controlled people into acting the way that they wanted them to. So something that was commonly called demonic was anything of pagan culture. Pagan literally means it's one with the earth. You work with the elements of the earth and nature. So if somebody was seen giving ginger tea to their daughter because she had a stomach ache, she's a witch, burn her at the pyre. Like literally. And it's not just those sorts of things. It's anyone going against the church. And so God forbid if you actually spoke your mind or did something of where you were really utilizing your dark power, right? And so if you've done shadow work, you understand that you can utilize your shadows. Like your shadows can be utilized for something that is of the highest good. You can harness that power within your life to serve you. Or you can allow it, especially if it's repressed and you're like trying to pretend it's not there, it will spiral out of control and it will have a life of its own. So do you see what I mean about this level of deep programming that we're really not even aware of on a conscious level? And it's like, oh, that's right, for thousands of years, here's another example, but I'm going to finish my sentence. For thousands of years, if I acted out of the mold of what was seen as acceptable, I would die. Or there would be extreme consequences. It's heavy. It's really heavy to hold. So one example, I share this in another video because it's just, this shows you how deep this goes. So literally men, if they were caught masturbating, it was seen as wasting life. They would be put to death. That's how deep the sexual programming was. Women for thousands of years. Okay, first of all, women would, in matriarchal times, would utilize plants for contraception. They wouldn't have to have abortions because they knew what plants to use for contraceptives. So all of a sudden when the church takes over, women have no control of their bodies. Does that ring any bells? We still have men in control of our bodies today, determining what we can do. Not a thing in matriarchies. Women had complete power. Everyone had complete power over their own body, which is obviously how it should be. If you disagree, you probably aren't following my channel anyways. So women, if they were with an infertile man and they thought that they could get pregnant and they weren't, she would be killed for trying to interfere with the pregnancy process, even if the guy was infertile. If she had a miscarriage, often she would be killed for interfering with that process. It's like, what? So these are the sorts of energies around that were telling us, here's the acceptable way to be. Don't show it. You have to perform perfectly sexually in terms of procreation, but you also can't have any desire for sexuality. This is just something that you do to have a baby just so we can continue the earth, and that's it. There's no enjoyment in it. Don't pretend you have, you can't have sexual urges. If you do, you're of the devil. These were the thought concepts. And so, yeah, then going back to just all of that power, and I'm pointing, you can't really see, I'm pointing to my solar plexus, womb, root. This is where a lot of these energies live. Anger, rage, sexuality, greed, lust. And of course, some of these things can be used improperly. That's why we have to work with them. If you repress them, they will 100% come out in wild ways. You're not going to be able to harness them if you don't know what they are to work with them. So I suggest you go watch my What is Shadow Work video if you want to learn more about how you actually do that. But yeah, so we have this deep fear of our own darkness, and your darkness, if you don't understand it, you don't understand half of yourself, and you're oblivious and you're pretending and you're like, I'm perfect, everything is great. I love doing this because we have so much of our life, we've been trained to do that. And yeah, just learn how to work with your darkness. And going back to the goddess, she swims in the underworld and heaven and is fully comfortable in both. And that allows you to it helps you so much when you can be comfortable in both. Now, in the beginning, when you're first starting to do your shadow work, it's going to feel intense because you're just not used to it. But eventually you understand the process of what it looks like, and you can bring heaven into that space. So you can operate, you can hold both of those energies at once. And I want you to take away any connotation of the underworld being like devilish or being hell. It's not the same at all. Remember, in matriarchal cultures, there wasn't duality. It was all one. Everything just was. There was no connotation to either. It wasn't like, oh, heaven's the good one and the underworld is like where there's scary demons, right? We've also been trained so much around the concept of demons. This is probably like another video, but your demons just want to be loved and seen. These are your shadows. And there can be other entities. I wouldn't use the word demons for those, but there can be other entities from being people who have passed, from other beings, from energy forms coming out of other people that can like attack you, and you have to learn how to work with those. That's another video. If you want me to do a video about that, put that in the comments, right? I want a negative entities video. But we have to learn to work with our own demons, and they're not these like, think about what you imagine when you think about hell. I see like a million faces and they're all screaming, and some of them are like skeletons and they're like grabbing your ankles, right? That's what we see in movies or in like Dante's Inferno. And these are just aspects of yourself that want to be loved and want to be seen. But for thousands of years, you've been like, no, I don't have you. You're not there. It's like if you have a dog and you just completely disregard it, it's going to start tearing shit up to get attention, right? Or a child, like they're going to act out. So, or a husband or wife, like we can't ignore aspects of ourselves. It's just never going to work. And you have to be able to look at all of these parts of yourself with love, and then learn how to harness them for your highest good, and to actually be able to contribute to your mission and to what you're here for. So I wrote a couple of notes on it. I just want to make sure I got everything here. Yeah, what I want to really stick with you is that concept of duality. Like, our darkness isn't good or bad. Take away the connotation from that. It can be utilized. It can be harnessed for anything. It just is. It's an aspect of us, and you can't deny it or reject it. So this is a part of the cycles of nature. I've been talking so much about this because the cycles of life are how we go back to more of a matriarchal type of culture. The culture we have now, the patriarchal system, is linear. It's a machine. We aren't honoring life at all. We're not honoring our own cycles unless you've sort of come out of that system, which we're all still a part of it, right? I'm filming this on an iPhone and I'm going to put it on my MacBook after. So onto YouTube, like very much a part of the matrix, very much part of the system. But when you remove yourself from some parts of this, you can see how fucked up it is a lot easier. So like, I'm not a part of I work for myself, so I'm not in that sort of a matrix, but I'm still a part of it because I live in the world today. So, and I utilize technology to help share my message. So what was I getting at with that? Oh, so the cycles of life are so important for us to learn how to work with and be fully comfortable in any cycle. Any cycle, whether it's death, whether it's the void, whether it's rebirth, the creation, sustainment, liberation, any of the different cycles of the feminine, whether you're a man or woman, you have to be able to fully encompass that cycle to really understand life. And that sounds kind of like, I don't know what it sounds like, but it's the truth. Because if we're not willing to go to the depths, we're just living this surface level and we never know what's actually underneath. It's like, I'm just like, don't you want to like be able to explore the whole ocean, not just float on the top? Like, don't you want to see what's at the bottom and in the cool cave over here, and like see the mermaids swimming over there? Like, see all aspects of the ocean, get to know all aspects of your ocean. So if you're like, I want to learn how to do that, right now, so if you're watching this in like 6 months, it won't apply. But right now I'm launching my next mastermind. We start July 1st, 2022. It's called Initiation. And Every month, we're going to be moving into a different cycle of the feminine, allowing you to learn how to fully embody that cycle. But it's also a mastermind. So we're going to be you're going to have deep support. When you come into this space, you're asking for an initiation with the goddess, and you're basically training to become a steward of the goddess on planet Earth. So you're saying, hey, I want to spread my gifts in a way that raises the vibration of the planet and allows us to come back into an actual experience of life, to help reverse the system that has been created over the last 4,000 years and come back into our soul's experience, to come back into our soul's truth, and start to learn how to operate in that cyclical nature, because that's gonna, whether you're a teacher or whatever you do for your work, like for your soul's mission, you're gonna spread, people are gonna notice how you interact with life, and you're gonna spread that. So this is an extremely powerful opportunity, one, to get full access to me for 6 months and a powerful group of sisters, but also it's an initiation with the goddess. I created this space because I was told to. And if you know my other work, you know that I work in the Akashic Records, and so I'm a channel. And all of my creations the last few years, including my book, many different courses, have all been guided directly by the goddess, and they're life-changing. People are like, I will do this 100 times, or I will read this 100 times, because I've had such a profound experience with this. It doesn't come from me. I'm the container and the vessel for it, and I form it with my physical hands, but it's from the divine. So if that feels interesting to you, I'm going to put the link for the mastermind in the comments below. And registration closes June 30th. So if you're interested, message me on Instagram. You can email me, aliwilkinsabundance@gmail.com. My Instagram is ali.wilkins, or at the Goddess Revealed. I have 2 different pages now. So yeah, you can ask me any questions there, but we start July 1st. It's going to go through the end of the year. It's going to be really powerful. So we're definitely going to be playing with our dark goddess and with all aspects of the goddess. So anywho, thank you guys for watching. If this supported you, please like the video, comment on it. Let me know what you enjoyed about this or what you learned from it. And share it if it supports you. I'd love if you subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. So anyways, I'll see you guys on the next video, and I'm sending you lots of love. Bye.